Okay, good evening, Hatfield. Welcome to the February 11th, 2025 meeting of the Hatfield Select Board. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and as usual, I'll open by reading our public participation policy. The Hatfield Select Board welcomes everyone to its meetings and all other public meetings of the town of Hatfield. All regular and special meetings of the boards and committees of the town of Hatfield shall be open to the public and shall conform to the open meeting law. Executive sessions are closed to the public and will be held only as prescribed by the statutes of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It is important to recognize that the open meeting law affords the opportunity to listen to the proceedings, but not necessarily participate. During meetings of the Select Board, an attempt will be made to find a balance between hearing from members of the community and conducting the required business of the Hatfield Select Board. So for announcements, I know, Ed, you mentioned you had, are you ready? Are you good to do an announcement right now? You said you have an announcement.
No, I didn't. I don't have an announcement. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I forgot if we recognized the passing of Adam Ballounis, who was on the fire department.
And we should.
Yeah, let's.
Go ahead.
We're with much regret, Adam Ballounis passed away. He was on the fire department for many years and served his town in many capacities, and his passing will be sadly missed.
A farmer.
Yeah.
He was a farmer and a really great guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
May his memory be a blessing.
Yes. And so our sympathies to his family. Also, many of whom were involved in town things. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so you do not have any, I don't think I do either, have any other announcements, but I'm going to turn it over to Andrew for 2 bits of good news.
Sure, yep, these are 2 grant announcements. These are both lower lift grants from us, but one of which came from fire department. This is the Massachusetts Department of Fire Services grants. They do these grants each year for equipment. It can be used for reimbursement for fire departments for purchase of essential firefighter turnout gear, such as hoses, nozzles, and communications equipment as well, hand tools. And Hatfield will be receiving $10,100 through that. It's reimbursable, so they'll be able to use it for any gear that's already been purchased or is planning on being purchased. So that'll be good. I think we typically know that those are coming each year, but Fire Chief is still happy to receive it, and we thank him for making sure that happens.
Yeah, Bob is really good about pursuing grant opportunities, so congrats to the fire department.
And the other grant is
the chief.
Sorry,
thanks to the chief, that's all.
excellent. And the other grant is through the Massachusetts Broadband Institute, which made these large grants really directly to service providers. This was directly to cable, to Comcast Cable Communications Management, but it's to expand access in communities across the state, and Hatfield is one of the communities that they will be planning on serving. So we'll wait to hear more from our Comcast rep about if there's anything that comes on us to make sure that happens, but we are one of the communities that they'll be helping, and I know that would have required a letter of support from us to make that happen. So great to see that we're part of the awardees.
Also good news. Thank you so much, Andrew, and thank you to Comcast. And John, I don't know, did you have any involvement in that? No. Okay, well, I would have thanked you. I would have thanked you if you did. But okay, is anyone here for public forum? No. So we'll go ahead and move right to our consent agenda, which is the approval of the January 28th, 2025 minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve of the January 28th, 2025 minutes.
Second.
A motion made and second. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Topic 1 is we are joined by some members of our local cultural council. Thank you for being here. To talk about concerts coming up in the summer, because it's a great time to think about summer, right? I think we're all missing summer a little bit these days. So if you could just introduce yourselves, and then it'd be
Is
great.
it best to talk into the mic? Or
It'll
it
pick you
doesn't
up.
matter?
It'll pick you up. Right, John? Yeah.
Good. I'm Deborah Major, and I've been on the Hatfield Cultural Council for 3 years.
My name is Betty Snow, and I recently joined the Cultural Council last year.
Well, welcome to both of you, and thanks for serving in that capacity.
I've known Betty for about 20 plus years, and when she moved to Hatfield, I was delighted, and it was so wonderful to hear her say yes to be part of the Cultural Council.
Excellent.
Yeah. I'm here to give two dates that are on the calendar, the Hatfield calendar, for concerts to happen at the Smith Academy Park. And I wanted to say that it's a pleasure being on the council because we fund events with the Council on Aging and the Hatfield Library, which includes the summer camp program. So we fund wonderful events for the constituents of the library and Council on Aging, and recently was able to say yes to a grant application from the Historical Society. So we're excited about that. The concert that one concert that we're talking about is for the boomers, because it's really fun to see the community come out. This concert was done in 2023, and it had a tremendous, I mean, I can't even believe the turnout. It was so lovely. And I brought a photo because I don't know if anybody's seeing this many people sitting in the park for a live concert.
This was taken here?
Yes, in 2023.
Oh, yeah, the concerts are so great here. They're so great.
So they played in 2023. You were there. And anyway, as I was coming here, a neighbor of mine that lives at Capewalk said, "Oh, they're coming back. I'm so excited." She said, "My neighbor, who doesn't come out for anything, came out for that concert." So I realized, wow, we're reaching an audience.
So what is it called?
So the band is called Harvest and Rust. This is the promo material for the upcoming 2025 event.
Okay.
So I printed it.
Oh, so it's Friday, July 11th at 7. And so it's a Neil Young tribute band. I actually saw the real Neil Young one.
All right.
Yeah. So that's great. Harvest and Rust. Okay, and I assume this will be promoted in various ways as it gets closer, like on social media, on the,
Absolutely. That's why the turnout was so great in 2023, because it was well promoted, both locally and, I don't know, their Facebook page and
That's
the
great.
calendar, the town calendar, then town Facebook. So regarding that, the question I need answered at some point is, what kind of power is available to the band for that concert? Last time the pavilion was not up and they brought in a generator. So whatever power questions I have, I need to be directed.
I can work with you on that.
Okay.
yeah. There's outlets, there's power out there, okay.
So just,
I
is
mean, I
that-
know there's been a lot of concerts, so there's got to be, yeah.
is there something technical about what kind of power is out there for them that I could share?
I think
110, a regular household receptacle power, just like you have here. These receptacles here, it's 110 volts.
And how many are out there?
There's a few, I don't know exact location, but there's a few
couldn't Garrett
out there.
get that information?
We'll hook you up.
We'll coordinate getting that
Super.
information for you.
And how should I follow up with you directly? Okay, great. So the other question about the concert is restroom. And last time we paid for a detail from the fire department to allow people to get into the restroom. Now, I got in touch with our treasurer, but I don't have an answer if the Hatfield Cultural Council has a budget to be able to pay for that, because the Mass Cultural Council doesn't include outside of the performers and the applicant. So is there a budget somewhere to tap into to be able to allow a restroom to be used when the Smith Academy Park is
No,
being used?
oh. But that's the fire station, right?
The fire station has done that in the past.
Yeah. I mean, I think we'd have to consult with some various department heads to see, but
conversation.
it is not something we typically just cover the finances for, because there's a lot of things that happen in the park, so we can't absorb,
Right.
So it's been, it's been something that's been a bit of a stumbling block
I
for us,
imagine with the
but
celebration committee also, and I just got the contact person, so I'm going to ask them what they do, because they have concerts May through September.
And did you check with them?
Porta potties, they bring in some porta potties for the
potties.
concerts.
So that's, yeah. That was going to be more expensive than actually paying for the detail at the fire
Yeah.
department, is what we found
Twice,
last
I mean,
time.
if you use like town hall, we'd have to have a custodian to
Oh, I
make sure everything
know.
got cleaned up and you got that many people.
It's
It would
too
be, it could be a
vulnerable.
mess, you know, I
Yeah.
mean, porta potties is one. I
It's
mean,
also quite a walk
Yeah,
from,
Right.
honestly, from there to go up around, because you have to come to this side of the building.
Yeah, the fire station worked out beautifully, so hopefully the treasurer of the Cultural Council will say, actually, there is this account, because we talked about opening a new account and and soliciting donations, so it's a little something that needs to,
I think it has been there's been somebody in the fire station that was paid to be there.
yeah, the detail, I think it worked out to like $75, so it was very reasonable. And I said, I'll pay for it if we don't have the budget, but it ended up actually being covered, so I have to figure out how to do that again, but twice.
And then
because
you,
the
Andrew,
second
you could help
concert-
put her in touch with Bob.
We can talk.
Here's the second concert
Oh,
that we funded for.
oh, this
same
one, so this is actually first on June 28th.
Yeah, I was so excited about
So
the
this
other
is
one.
the New England Swing Orchestra, which is a concert of big band swing. 10-piece group featuring vocal, brass, reed, and rhythm sections. That's Saturday, June 28th from 6 to 8 p.m. That's so nice. That sounds great.
Yeah, that sounds great too. The fellow who got in touch with me he participated in the Bad News Blues that has performed there. So anyway, people come back.
And so
They wanna
have
come
you
back.
cleared these dates with the celebration committee that they aren't also planning? There's no conflict with the dates?
The celebration committee's MO is to have a concert the third Friday from May until September.
Okay, so
So
neither of those would be.
yeah, there's no conflict there. And our dates are now on the town calendar. I now have the current communication person for the celebration committee, so I'm going to get in touch with them and ask some questions and let them know what we're doing too. So-
Another nice thing that has happened on the concerts is some of our restaurants have provided like little packages for people going to the concert, like a little pickup of sandwiches or something like that. So you could contact like Fishtails or Smithsonian and see if they're interested in sponsoring away or just providing something for concert goers, so they have some food.
It's
when they
not
come.
provided for them, but what they do is they, on that evening, they'll have special things you can order. I think you have to pre-order them, but they put it out that if you're going to the concert, you can order, like some type of, what am I trying to say? It's not a picnic
Wrap,
basket.
a
it's
box lunch or
Yeah, like a boxed,
Yeah.
like a to-go box that you
Okay.
can take over to the concert. It's really great, way to,
But that brings up the problem of who picks up the trash. That's always,
yeah.
who
So
cleans the
What
thing.
did we do? I think I brought over pails last time, and the Cultural Council took responsibility for cleaning up trash, and there really wasn't any. But it was an agreement that we had made
I would
to be
talk to the
responsible.
celebration committee about what they do for their concerts for trash, because I know they make provisions for that.
Yeah, and they've been doing it over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah, good, all good idea. Let me write that down. Last time I actually had talked to Ice Cream Emergency about bringing their big red truck, and she said, I'll see, and it finally just sort of fell through. But
That is a great idea.
I know.
I love Ice Cream Emergency. Have you been to that?
No, I haven't been yet.
Oh,
Is it
yeah.
great?
Many times at different functions, and it's like a emergency vehicle, and it says, it's painted up almost like an ambulance, and you walk through and you can order whatever, it might be just scooped ice cream, it might be sundaes, whatever I think it depends on what you order.
And the
they
sisters
wear
are
like
Hatfield.
scrubs and everything, and they serve you the ice cream, and they're based in Hatfield. That's great. Yeah, they're based right here in Hatfield.
I mean, of course, we couldn't say, yes, we'll cover $800 worth of ice cream feed.
Right.
Like, we couldn't do it that way. It was more like a retail situation. So she wasn't that excited. But do you think I should reach out to her again?
Why not?
Okay. All right, so.
And I think it's always worth it. I mean, Friday and Saturday nights might be kind of busy for them, but I would reach out and ask.
It'll be the
Because
second
people
time
would
I've
just
been.
pay, right? They would buy their own ice cream.
It's a little off the menu of what she does. She'd prefer to like be prepaid.
Yeah,
and,
right. It's
serve everybody.
usually
So-
like you have them there for an event where you pay. Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Any other ideas to make this great?
No, but if you do get them, I would promote that they're going to be there so people
Yes.
know, so people, know to bring money or whatever.
I'm hungry.
Yes.
Ice cream. Good, well, that's everything I have. All right,
Okay, how nice.
Cool.
How nice. Another reason to look forward to summer.
great, thanks for your time, and
Yes.
thanks for the, everything it takes to be on this committee.
Oh,
Oh,
thanks.
thanks for doing that.
Thanks.
be
Thanks
there
to
for
you
both,
too.
yeah.
Thank you,
We
and
have
thank you,
new
Betty.
members, so it's really a nice time for the Cultural Council, because I will be ending my term, so it was a pleasure to have Betty be able to see this process.
Excellent.
Cool.
Excellent, thank you very much. Okay, our next topic is we're going to review a couple of budget presentations. We're going to ask Mickey to come up first from the Historical Commission. And so, let's see. We do have your submission, which, for the most part,
It's the same,
is the same, except one big difference.
exactly.
Right.
Yep. Would you like me to go through, there are only 8 line items, and I guess I should say to the public that we're requesting a total of $22,350. It's the same from the 25 budget that was approved. And it's kind of just for nitty-gritty things. Electricity for the farm museum, some farm museum repairs, equipment maintenance, vehicles of that sort for there, some tech services, and then professional development. And we support, actually, a lot of these we're supporting the society, so they can go on a one of those, that big one is a conference that Meg likes to go to. And then some software licensing and the good old admin and office supplies for $100. So those are the, oh, I missed one, sorry, dues and membership is $100.
So the conference, who goes to the conference?
We support the society to go to, I can't remember the name of the specific conference. There also was a time when I first joined that a member from the commission attended a conference in Boston for Mass Historical. So we'd like to have it in the budget because it's used.
It's an in-state
Yes,
conference?
absolutely. Yeah, there's no lodging. This is somebody driving, to Deerfield, the
Yep.
memorial, or to Boston.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then there is another significant request.
Yes, and it's easy to explain, because I think everybody here has a knowledge of eBay and what that entails, as well as other, even Facebook Marketplace, which shockingly, some artifacts pop up in Facebook Marketplace that you'd never believe would not end up there. And we're requesting $4,000 for what we're calling an artifact acquisition fee or fund. And that would be an opportunity in these fast-moving times, whether it was something identified by the commission or the society, to move on a very important artifact that the town should have and bring to the collection. The most profound example I can think of is an opportunity that could have been missed, because we just adopted this quite extraordinary trunk that had Hadley chest. It's truly one of our most remarkable pieces, and kept under lock and key and very, very secure by the society, thankfully so. But the story for people that don't know is that it's a 1694 chest. It's rare, one of the few that is in existence, and it was given by Richard Morton to his son Abraham as a wedding gift. It languished in somebody's basement for 15 years in North Carolina, probably descended from Morton's and then Kellogg's, and then it ended up in their cellar. They were moving to Florida, and as I understand it, the Irvins, they were moving to Florida and were emptying and what do we do with this trunk? And then thankfully, Paul Irvin decided to do some research. And lo and behold, it's a 330-year chest that was from Hatfield, made in Hadley. I don't think people have put together, getting a little off topic, but I like this stuff. I don't think people have put together who built it, but they're working on that. Anyway, if that wasn't donated graciously, they actually drove up from the Carolinas and donated that, we may have been in a position where they might have wanted money for it, and there's no money for that kind of acquisition. And it could have been sold privately, which is probably what would have happened. There's a good representation of these chests also up in Deerfield in their museum. But we'd like the opportunity to vote as a commission to ascend a certain piece, to buy a certain piece, and we have a cap. It's not as if there's a blank checkbook and we see something for $28,000 and it's a silver spoon and we're putting that in the collection. This would be agreed upon by the commission. We have a sessions commission, committee made up of one member from each, the commission and society, and they would decide on if this is something we should purchase or not. And this could be done quickly and efficiently without losing the opportunity. And I actually jumped on eBay this afternoon to see if there was anything, because I do that sometimes. And there are a couple very interesting pieces. There's actually an envelope that was from a Dr. Kaufman from the Shanghai ghetto, Jewish ghetto during World War II. And it was a letter written to Bernard Sawicki on Elm Street. And what a connection. Like, that's just kind of cool and great history to know. Like, beyond that, I don't know what the letter said, I don't know anything else, but that's on eBay for $250. So if the society had an interest, or if they wanted to, bolster their artifact genre is a word that pops in my mind, then I think that's what we should be doing. And in this day, when things are on the internet, I think that's important to have this fund. There's nothing like it in town. We don't have an opportunity, aside from for an individual going and writing a personal check or PayPal. We don't have an opportunity to acquire these things. And the last thing I'll say is we are also taking things out as two entities working together, the commission and the society. We are taking items out of the collection that are, I think Megan's spoken to this very well, that are redundant or kind of obsolete or maybe not so historical.
What do you do with that stuff?
That's a society question. Actually, I don't know.
So right now, the society owns everything?
No. The town owns everything. The town owns the collection.
Great.
The commission oversees the collection. The society does all the great and fun stuff with the collection.
But you're giving stuff owned by the town to the society?
No. The society never owns the collection.
But the redundant stuff?
That we have an agreement.
Who has an agreement?
The commission, the society, on how these things are handled. What's taken out of the artifacts.
But you make a good point. If it is town property.
Right.
Yep. Yes. And as the committee, the historical commission, charged by you and Massachusetts, we have to make decisions on some things, but we are guided also by the society. In other words, we work together to determine what.
But there's still a procedure for disposing of town-owned things.
Yeah.
I don't know if the word disposed is even a thing. But
Well,
If we were to make the decision it's no longer town property, is that the argument?
that they don't think it needs to be part of the collection for the couple of different reasons it could be deemed that, like I get it.
Yeah, the one example I can think of is they had 4 or 5 programs, the same program from something that happened in like the 30s. So aptly, they decided they kept the best one, the best conditioned one, and then I don't know what happened to the others, but this is very, very common. Towns and municipalities do this all the time. It's impossible to take everything in over the years, especially if previous entities just took everything. And that was, from my understanding, that was what did happen during a certain stretch of years. Everything was just taken in, which is part of the reason, and is John here? No. Part of the reason why the barn was chock full of stuff and had to be, coordinated and cleaned and taken care of properly.
But you get what I'm saying.
And I do too. I just don't have the answer.
It is, if Chief Flaherty decides he doesn't need certain things, or the police chief, or you don't just, there's kind of a procedure, right, for getting rid of things.
I think the procedure, quite honestly, is a everybody, we have a discussion, and there's a
It's more what
coming
happens
to-
after you decide, where it goes,
No,
like,
I
that's
don't
my,
know.
it's not
That's-
how you decide, it's
Okay.
after you
Oh,
decide.
Oh, I
Yeah,
thought you said procedure, so that's a procedure, but other than, the procedure to
where it goes after you make the
don't know,
decision.
yeah, that's kind of
You
been
know,
handled by the
because it is
society.
some type of artifact if it's in
Yeah.
our possession.
Yeah, and I don't have the answer to that.
I mean, if you guys decide you don't want an item in the collection anymore, then after you determine that, whichever that is, then the town has a process to remove that item. We have to actually vote on it, and there's a process. You just can't take a piece of property from the town and say, we don't want it anymore.
And, oh, somebody
have a
else will take it
procedure,
or
that's
whatever,
all.
you just don't.
That is actually what you guys signed with the agreement. That's in the agreement, the Sessions Commission and the deaccessioning of artifacts and who does that and why. And that was signed by the Select Board.
That, we're not talking about the decision process to decide that this cup is no longer worthy of being in the collection for whatever. It's, you make that decision,
Yeah.
then where does the cup go? It is town property.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Would
It's
it
just
follow
maybe,
the same surplus
yeah.
process?
And
so
maybe
you're asking?
something that needs to be added to the agreement then, and then signed by everybody, because that was not part of the agreement, and I don't think it was it
Right.
wasn't brought up when we were having the discussions on how to handle the deaccession.
I mean, part of so getting back,
Yeah, sorry.
so we do need to look into that. You know,
Take care of
because,
that, yep.
I mean, some things are small, like a program from something, and, you know, they might be of significance to other people, but then you could have a piece of furniture, you could have something like that that was also
Yeah.
a piece of redundant farm equipment or something, so could be larger pieces.
Yeah, once a department determines they don't want something, then it becomes a surplus item, and then there's a process that the town goes through in order to remove it or get rid of it.
And I'm not sure if there's an exemption of that for historical artifacts, of which there's duplicates, anything else.
But
that's something
But
that
it's
we should-
almost more,
you would argue.
it's
yeah,
almost
yeah,
more
that makes sense.
concerning where it goes afterwards because it has historical significance than if it's like, you know, an old chainsaw the DPW doesn't want anymore.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I do.
It's-
I'm
mean,
totally getting all
we
this.
need to know where things go.
Let's clean that up and tie
Yeah.
that off and.
But on the $4,000, I mean, I totally understand, and you've given some good examples of why you're coming. I guess I have a couple of concerns. We don't really have budgets that have just sort of this open-ended, we don't really know what the money's going to be for kind of line in them. And the other problem is, if anything, our problem has been the collection's too large. So I'm not sure what to do about this. I mean, I think it's a good conversation to have with the full budget team, but that's just my, you know, some of my concerns with it, and just that you know, how do you know it's authentic when you see it on eBay? Like, there's a lot of things that come into question with that for me.
It could actually be something that's also in a local antique store. I inherited by almost accident my family Bible. Somebody contacted me from Connecticut, and there was the Sanderson family Bible, my family's. And I had to pay $150 for it, but I'm very happy to do so. So these are the things that can happen. I think that it's important to know that if the money's not spent, it's just not spent. And we'd ask for it again next year. So just trying to cover all bases, especially in these times when people are using these online platforms, auction platforms. You know, when somebody from Minnesota who finds something in Aunt Betty's attic that says Hatfield on it doesn't care about really contacting Hatfield, they're going to put it on and see how much money they can get. So I'm just trying to protect something that, and it's unlikely, but we are trying to build something that there's kind of a safety net for something really important. And that's why I mentioned the trunk, the Hadley chest, rather.
I mean, we've had committees come in front of us before and want money just in case. And it's sort of said, we just can't do it because, I mean, we can talk to the finance committee, but it's like, if all the departments come up and say, we want money on the side just if, then, I mean, I think there's a budgetary concern with that too. It's just, I understand your intent, I understand what you want to do, I think it's fantastic, but I think we have to check with finance on if we can actually
Right.
take money, put it on the side, just for an if.
I mean, right, when we're asking other departments to
Right, we're
really
not to.
absolutely nickel and dime down to, you know, I mean, it just seems, it would be it would be completely different.
I
And-
agree, it's completely different, but it's kind of we have a different mission in a way, though, than a lot of
And
departments.
we understand the mission, and I think you've made a good case for this. I'm just saying first of all, it's a lot of money that we're going to have to struggle to find because you know, this is not the best budget year, but,
Fair enough.
and it's, you know, it's also, I guess it's also strange to have town money be able to be used for something that's really so subjective, right? Because what might be, you know, something you think is extremely valuable to the collection, someone else might not think it's worth that to the collection. You know, it's very I mean, it sounds like you've got two people who would coordinate on it, but it's,
And truly, the town would have to trust the experts, and I'm not saying that's me. I like houses. You know, I'm into the historic fabric of the community, the landscapes, the architecture, things like that. We have specialists. We have people that really know their stuff in town. And yeah, there would have to be kind of some faith and some trust given to some of those decision makers.
That's true, but the bottom line is it's the taxpayers' money. so,
right.
Agree.
It is
that's the
taxpayer
bottom
money.
line.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's been any time where if a department wants to purchase something and we brought it in front of town meeting, the town decides whether they want to pay for it or
And
not.
that's
I
fair.
mean,
Yep.
I don't know if there can be any kind of fund set up so that if you see an opportunity where we can just purchase it without having any kind of prior approval by the taxpayers that pay the bills.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the big
That's the
issue.
other thing, is that, you know, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions on that?
I know you're looking to be more nimble than waiting for town meeting to purchase an envelope.
I understand the
but-
processes, but I would understand actually if this wasn't approved for the reasons you're stating. I'm just trying to find some way to make it work just in case something happens. So we don't have regret, we don't have remorse about, you know, something that could have been added. That's quite wonderful.
Understood.
All right?
Yeah,
Thank you for your time.
thank you. Good night, thank you. Next up is our building inspector. Kyle, welcome. How's it going?
Good, you?
It's going good. So we'll give you the floor to sort of run through these line items.
So basically, you have the salaries on the first page. There's not a lot to this budget. It's pretty much the same as it is every year. Salaries have changed a little bit just due to contract. My contract changed last year. And adding on the other inspectors for the current year.
So, okay, so what does, I mean, I understand yours is contractual, but the other inspectors, there is a slight increase.
Yeah.
Is that you added a COLA, or is that,
There's extra things that are gonna be happening with the amount of commercial inspections that we've got. So it's very slight that they would have extra inspections. Hasn't increased much at all.
that's what you're
Few-
projecting? It's
Yeah, a
So
few
it's just
$100.
more work?
It's more work.
Okay,
It's more work. Pickleball, for instance, that's a
yeah,
lot of.
right.
A lot of inspections over there, which we took in large fees for, so it should offset with the budgets. But then on the second page, we have a line item for $5,400 in 2025. That's for the online permitting subscription fee. So that's the annual contract amount, and that's not fluffed up at all. That's the actual amount.
So that goes up almost 10% a year, it looks like.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
How's the online
and
stuff
it pretty
going?
much levels off.
How's the online stuff going?
Oh, it's awesome. It's awesome. People love it.
Yeah,
And what it does too is it cuts down all your document retention and paperwork.
Right.
So you, instead of having massive rolls of plans, that pickleball is all on a little symbol like a paper clip, that big building, and you just click the clip and you can see multiple pages of documents.
Oh, nice.
And engineering reports on its construction. Every time I get an engineering report on the concrete, you know, the test reports, Ed, I have Lori scan them in, so that's all one document, so if they ever want to check their file, it's all right there.
And that's all on, like, backed up on the server,
Yeah.
or we're using the cloud? How are we doing that?
Using the cloud.
Yeah.
All through a platform, yeah.
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 Nice.
So that's all just great retention of some
Right.
massive documents that would take
I mean, it's
up
still
a
fairly
filing-
reasonable, less than $6,000
Yeah,
a
it
year,
would take
yeah.
up a filing cabinet, you know? So then the rest are just the small normal items, the office supplies.
With
they're
no,
all
with
flat-
no
flat-
increases, yep.
Flat year after year, so that's it.
That sounds good. Any, what's your projection for, like, inspection revenue? Oh, did she leave these here by mistake, do you think? Oh. I'll make sure. Okay.
I see it going up if the Fed starts lowering the rate. I think we're gonna have more and more construction of residential again, and probably even some multifamilies, and then this ADU program that the governor started. I've got a meeting tomorrow night, because I have my Wednesday office hours, with a local contractor that knew me, and he's got a customer for one in town. And I had a fellow that works for RK Miles that's gonna, interested in building one. So there's gonna be quite a few of those, I think, popping up here and there. And then just our commercial projects, Ed mentioned the hotel. I do still think that will happen. I've talked to them periodically, and I know they were meeting with different builders and contractors. So we have that, we have the pickleball underway. Stiebel Eltron had the death of their founder. So, you know, that kind of put a little slowdown on their construction, but they are finishing up the big phase where their current headquarters is on lower end of West, 17 West, before they go up the road.
So is
The
there
other
still a
side.
plan to do
There's
something
still
up the road?
plans to do that, yes. And Scapes Builders
Yep,
up the road by
that's
Chestnut,
coming
that's
along.
underway.
Yep,
There's quite a bit of stuff going on, and there's scattered residential all over the place.
Is there?
Even Tammy's son, the tax collector, her son's building one on Plain Road, a new house, and there's houses, it's just you don't tend to think of it or see it, so.
Now, with the
Right.
new state regulations I just read on the ADUs, how does that,
It can be up to 900 square feet, either attached to the dwelling or detached. And then the only zoning restrictions are minimal side yard and whatever the restrictions are for zoning. The town of Hatfield, I talked to Stephanie on the planning board, we're talking about having planning board review of the ADU if it's in the historic area, just for review of its architectural aspects, just so it doesn't clash with the aesthetics of what the houses are around it. And, you know, you don't want something gross, so to speak, put in there, you know?
and there's a provision that it can't be for Airbnbs, right?
Correct.
Right,
Yeah.
so it is a,
That
it
is
is,
a issue in every single town, though.
right.
And
So ADU, just for people who, it stands for accessory dwelling
Accessory
unit.
dwelling unit.
So sort of like an in-law apartment.
That's right.
Or in-law, it could be detached.
they did have that. it
And
was-
900 square feet's pretty good
Yeah.
size, I mean,
Well, and
decent
another thing
size.
too is they're not, even 900 square feet is not cheap to build today, so.
Oh, gosh, no.
Yeah, so I mean, when you have an investment like that, you're not so apt to beat it up, pay all that money or have a loan on something and then not treat it well, right? So,
And in many cases, it would require like an upgrade of a septic system too, no?
that's correct,
Yeah,
that's correct.
So
Or
these are
In a lot
expensive.
of cases, the health agent requires two systems. A lot of times on a two-family, you do see two systems, at least two tanks, or they might sometimes share a field. Two wells, if they have, you know, it's not usually shared, so. So there's a lot to it. So that would be more revenue also. But our revenue in the building department seems like over the years, it's actually, for a town of this size, it's always been pretty solid. You know, it's not, you don't look at it and go, wow, that fell off a lot. So pretty consistent. I watch my numbers. I look at it as you're running a business. Working for the town or municipality, you're running a business. That's why I always look at my fees I charge, if I'm competitive, if they should be tweaked or adjusted with other towns. I have noticed other towns are going up on some of their fees, and that might be something I'll tackle again, so.
Well, I appreciate, first of all, the budget's held,
Yeah,
you hold that pretty close. But I always appreciate when you come in and give us a little bit of an update on
sure.
what's going on in town. Because people think we know. I don't know about you two, but I never know what's going on.
sure, sure.
I never know.
Oh, and
So-
Omasta Landscaping too. I did talk to Mr. Omasta in the past couple weeks. He's going to be starting that up, so his special permit will kick in.
Yep.
That's another big project in town here
Yep.
that's gone on, as you know, for
Yep.
a long time. Went to town meeting and everything, so that's kicking in too.
And I'm sure he'll do a nice job.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
right
beautiful,
next to
I'm
his
sure.
property.
The
It's gonna-
family has excellent taste. So.
Yeah, they do. They do a nice job.
Yeah.
They did a nice job on that house.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot cooking, and when something major comes along, a lot of times I'll email Ed or something, or one of you, if by yourself, so it's not having a meeting online, or I'll be telling Andrew now, so. Instead of bugging Marlene, I have Andrew.
The downgrade.
That's really great. Well, I mean, I don't have any more questions about, the budget or anything, so,
Anytime, just call me as always, okay?
excellent.
Thank you,
Thank you.
guys.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it. Okay, so the next item is the approval of the survey on White Rock Trail. This is town property on Mountain Road, and this is from Northeast Survey.
So the quote is $2,400. It's been a little bit of a saga trying to wrangle somebody to do this. We've had a couple times when folks have said they'll come out and do it, and then it just has fallen through. So this was started quite a while ago, but Karen's been diligent in following through with folks, so we have got a good quote and hoping to move forward with this.
And this is coming out of what budget?
It's an excellent question. Do you remember? Because we had one approved before, right?
It was approved before, and I think the amount was the same amount. I'm just not sure which account it was coming out of.
If it's conservation, or is it water?
I think it was water.
It's not water.
No. And I don't even think it was conservation. I really have to go back into the minutes to check, because this goes back probably about.
The funding was already approved. This is just approving the actual contract, awarding the contract. Okay. I don't have any questions other than that.
I know, this goes back a few years anyways. There's been a lot of discussion over the years on that property and where the lines are and where the marks are, and
And we had one company that was going to do it, and for a year and a half, they just strung us along. And I finally picked it up again and found this company who was more than willing to do it.
I'm sure we probably approved it a while back, but we don't remember where it
Yeah.
was.
Yes.
Okay, so do you need us to approve this?
I think because of the contract amount, because it's already been budgeted, and just knowing that you're on board is probably enough. I don't think we need a vote on a contract, so we should be okay.
Great, thank you. Okay, topic 4 is a discussion around the vacancy of the DPW director position, both short and long-term decisions. This is, I really I've been giving this a lot of thought, because there's so many options. And I mean, I said last time, and I feel the same, that I, in my opinion, everything's on the table, that I'm open to considering, any options for moving forward on this. So I'm curious if anybody else has
Well,
developed a
I think I've
preference.
expressed myself. I've done research too, And what I've seen is over the years, Phil has provided more responsibility and sort of dumped his stuff onto the superintendents to do the job. So, I mean, at this time, I mean, other towns don't have a DPW or they have superintendents, and the superintendents that we have are specialized for their specific fields, meaning water treatments for water treatment, wastewater to wastewater, and the roads. They're all experts in those fields. So if we had a DPW director, I'm saying what would we get for our money if we continue to pay over 100 grand when these guys are already doing their job? And if there's anything that maybe they need help with would be paperwork, it seems more logical to me to say, okay, let's increase secretarial staff from his fees to assist the superintendents, or use that fund if there's a particular grant we need to chase, pay somebody to go after that particular grant, or other options. I mean, I don't see presently, after discussing things with people and working with other people, if we're losing out by not having a DPW director. Other places, DPW director during the snowstorm, they would be here, they would oversee snow operations, et cetera, et cetera. That hasn't even happened. I mean, he's never here for the snow operations. It's always been taken care of in-house. I'm just saying, so at this time, in my mind, I'd say let's find out. There was a, ADA director and tree warden. So those were and the other last thing that was needed was probably facilities. The school's actually in discussion talking about taking that stipend that they gave Phil and adding a little bit to it and having somebody as a go-to person or a handy person that can do some small repairs and call the contractors when needed, as long as they have approval from the superintendent. So, I mean, those are the things I'm thinking about. I think it's just facilities, the big one, but actually when you look at what was being done it was just phone calls to the contractors. It wasn't actually direction to say, do this or that. It was, Connor says, we need a HVAC unit fixed, okay, Cody, come in and take care of it. I mean, that's basically that was being done.
I mean, sorry.
Oh, no, I totally agree with all those points. And yeah, I think everybody's been doing all the legwork on everything. And, you know, I've talked to Andrew about looking at some job descriptions that would need some updating or maybe even creating in some points to maneuver that.
I mean,
happening.
one way to help manage those positions, and we'll be discussing it shortly, is GPS will help us as far as the managerial side of that, because we're not we're a small town. We're not like a big department. I mean, we don't have like a director of finance that oversees our treasurer and accountant. We don't have a director of emergency management that oversee our fire chief and our police department, right? I mean, so if we had a DPW director, what would we get for our money? What would that person do? That's not being done right now.
Right, but I do think that there were times when it was difficult to get things done. I would like to see us be a little bit more, proactive about getting things done. So I totally agree about the competence of our 3 superintendents to run those departments. I guess I do wonder, though, if there is that added layer of that strategic thinking around the management of those 3 departments, particularly around grants. I mean, I know I bring grants up a lot, but the town's done very well with grant money. So, I know that the superintendents are just so busy with the day-to-day operations that pursuing something as large as a MassWorks grant. How involved do we know, Karen? Do you know? Only because you weren't here yet. Like, how involved was Phil with preparing the MassWorks grant, or was that really just through CEI supported by Marlene?
It was supported by Marlene.
Marlene.
I
Marlene
don't
did
really
multiple
think Phil
calls.
had his hand in it at all.
I mean, Marlene actually did a lot of stuff that, after doing some research, that Phil had dropped the ball on.
Right, I
Marlene
do
had
know
picked
that.
it up to make
Yeah.
sure it got done. I mean, so maybe we should review the possibility we have a part-time secretary and Jenny, whether that position should be more full-time to help with any paperwork or assisting with things. I don't know if that's needed or not, but that's a question I have. If you want to help the superintendent so they don't fail, do they need more secretarial support, or should we also look
Administrative
at
support, I
somebody
would call it, yeah.
part-time to look at certain grants or something like that? Or whether Andrew needs another secretary to support to help assist with paperwork. I know eventually we're going to electronic payroll, so that should help with some of the paperwork. According to the superintendents, they don't seem to have a lot of paperwork. I mean, Garrett's always been the one with the
Chapter 90.
yeah, the Chapter 90 money grants. He takes care of that, and Tony takes care of anything with the water treatment plant. And Phil just sort of made sure that their budgets are up to snuff, but they're putting their budgets together. And for the wastewater treatment plant, you have Miles assisting with Kinney because he has the license that's needed, that's required by the state and federal government to
Miles?
operate that plant.
Oh, Eric Meals.
Meals.
Eric,
Yeah.
okay.
Mills. I said
Mills.
Miles, my mistake. Mills. Okay.
Meals,
Meals.
yeah, yeah.
Spelled the same, right? I guess, I don't know. Anyway.
Like a meal.
I know who you mean now, I just
Yeah,
didn't know who
okay,
you meant. Yeah, I mean,
Sorry,
do we, but did I understand correctly, we actually have to have a DPW director, an actual position as identified by the legislation?
The legislation created it, and it said that the select board shall appoint it. From the review of our town council, he read it more as saying this is the procedure you'd follow to hire one, that it's, you may appoint less of a shall. There wouldn't be anything to enforce that you'd have to hire somebody for that position.
There wouldn't have to be a designated DPW director.
You wouldn't have to hire a DPW director based on his reading of it. First of all, that's not really enforceable in any way, and second, anything for a position like this would be subject to appropriation. And if you decided not to appropriate for having that position, then you wouldn't have to have it.
I guess my concern is, we could easily say, we've been doing this basically, but maybe it could be done better. Like,
Very briefly, my intention was to leave those flyers
Oh, great.
oh,
filed somewhere within the town.
Oh, great.
okay,
Yeah, that's
very
perfect.
good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, it doesn't mean that we couldn't have more effective, interdepartmental planning and things running smoother and being more proactive about a lot of things and more strategic.
Yeah.
So,
The Department of Public Works, it manages most of the things that the town does. So
Right.
I'm sure that the work could be filled by having a person in that position. The right person also could contribute on some of the things that are in the job description around engineering, around facilities management, energy management.
Right.
Kind of taking us to the next stage in a lot of things that we're doing. At the same time, I'm looking at our budget and having $120,000, $130,000 to play with could help us out of a real hole.
I mean, I think in fairness, if we do divide up some of those things, then we need to seriously look at the pay for the, particularly on Garrett's, because I think a lot of the duties would fall to Garrett. So we'd have to look at that. I'm open to anything. I'm open to not having one. I'm open to having one, and I'm open to a halftime one or something. Maybe somebody retired or something who wants to come and be that strategic. I don't know. I just want to make sure that we're, maintaining that sort of, or getting back to that proactive, strategic planning.
Oh, nothing prevents us from periodically having a meeting with supervisors.
That's
to sit
true.
down and see how things are going and how things are going about, or have them meet with somebody and give us a report, et cetera, et cetera. So I would encourage that. That happens every couple of months, or a month or two, we actually, sit with the superintendent, one of us anyways, or with the town administrator, and get an
Yeah.
up-to-date report of what their needs are, what's not working, and how we're communicating. Because I think a lot of it is, this position too was communication. And we had problems in communication in the DPW director's position. We hired a part-time, Jenny got picked up hours to help communicate better to the town. And maybe that's where we move forward with more hours to help with phone calls and stuff from the residents to see what the issues are. Because actually phone calls from residents, if we get an up-to-date report periodically, that gives us an idea if we're falling short anywhere, if we're not getting things done for the people in town, or where our fallings are, right? So maybe that's another thing.
I mean, there's a lot of components really to it. There's overseeing the vehicles, the fleet, what needs to be replaced, there really is a lot of, moving pieces to this. This building, right? So any projects that are happening here have been, I don't know, maybe
But as far
Marlene
as
was really doing it, but
But as far as projects, if the school's pushing more for somebody to,
no, I know that. I'm talking more our buildings.
well, that
The
could, we could
DPW
add
garage.
with them, saying, okay, if it's a joint position where it's a handy position that oversees the school buildings plus this building plus the library, right?
See, I'm not thinking of the facilities manager as a handy person. I'm thinking of the facilities manager as making sure that, we're, going out to bid on things, that we're looking at the overall systems of, heating, air conditioning, lighting, energy efficiency. Like,
Protecting
I'm
the
not thinking
long-term
about the
status
person
of
who's
the
going to, repair a doorknob. I'm talking about actually managing the facilities.
Well, right now, yeah,
and-
okay, well, but that's what I'm saying, if the school wants to increase, if you want to increase that position, I mean, it could be a facilities manager that now, instead of a DPW director, you have a facilities manager to oversee the schools and these buildings. That's another possibility too. That's what you're sort of saying?
I think that the school is going to do theirs in-house. From what I understand, they have somebody that they're considering.
So all we have
And
left
so it
then
would
is-
be our buildings. The non-school buildings
all
would
that's
still
left is
fall
this
under the
building-
purview of the
this building
DPW.
and the library then, basically.
The DPW building, the fire station, all of those, yeah.
See, if it's a heating call, we have a contractor that they call. If there's, for projects, we have contractors that we call. So we already have established contractors that respond to our needs in these buildings now.
No, and that's not what I'm talking about, though. I'm talking about the bigger picture strategic stuff about, deciding a building may need a larger repair, that type of thing. So
I think that's overall what might be lost without a director, is
That's-
anything that feels
that
bigger picture
bigger
strategic.
picture.
And
yeah.
either that would need to be taken over by this body, select board, by extension potentially me in assisting with that, or you would probably contract out for it. You could see if you could have, every 5 years you'd have a capital facilities master plan created by a contractor, by some architect or someone who can help you think of these things. You'd have fleet management potentially managed by an outside entity. They can help with sorts of things like this, and that would be less expensive and potentially a higher level of professionalism for some of these things. It's an option.
There
Yeah,
are
I mean,
companies that do that. There
yeah.
are companies.
but that's more money, too.
It could be pricey.
It could be pricey. I mean, first of all, I think, I love the suggestion about meeting with the, I've talked with Tony, I've talked with Garrett, I have not talked with Kenny, but I think a regular communication, so back in the olden days, when I was on the select board the first time, when Jim Reedy was here, he came to every select board meeting, and he gave a full DPW report at every meeting, and I used to ask Phil to do that, and Phil wouldn't do it. He would come in sometimes when he had something, but I think it was it was so good for townspeople too, because, hey, we're going to put out the snow sticks or, whatever. I mean, he just was always updating people on what was happening in the department, whether it was sort of that nitty gritty, like, we might be doing a little project on a road, or the bigger picture stuff. We're looking at some, I don't know, he's always water conservation areas. And so that bigger picture. So I think communication is key. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to look at this as an opportunity to streamline things, create some efficiencies, but make sure that we're not letting anything fall through the cracks, and that we're not missing out, that we're so laser focused on the day-to-day and operating buildings like you're talking about, or taking care of roads or operating water systems, that we're not also thinking more strategically. That's a really important piece of managing this department correctly.
If I could make maybe one suggestion of a next step in all of this, is to look at the current job descriptions that we have for the superintendents. I don't know if there is one for some of the positions. I don't have it in my files for the highway superintendent. I think crafting that, or at least seeing what we have for that, would be important. I have one for wastewater superintendent that seems to be essentially an old draft, but starting there and then matching it with the responsibilities that I've outlined before to try to see where there might be some cracks for things to fall through, that could be a place to start. And then from there, we could try to determine, is that a job description for a director that comes out of that for the things that aren't filled, or potentially something else? That might be a place to start.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea. And, honestly, like the whole vehicle program, the lease program, sort of our fleet management, I mean, really, we have a mechanic. So I know when my husband years ago was in that role, he was doing that management, that fleet management, and recommending vehicles for replacement, recommending when it was time to pull them off the road. So some of that stuff, there might be obvious places that some of those extra duties can be distributed to people qualified to do them.
Correct.
Yeah. So I like that idea.
Yes, I think that would be appropriate. I like that too.
So I'll consider this a work in progress.
What can I do to facilitate next steps on that?
The job descriptions.
I have
you
most recent
mentioned.
job descriptions for you.
Oh, look at that.
You can take these home and start working with them. But I have a job description for the lead position, equipment operator and laborer, and from the best I can tell, there was never a change in this to turn it into the highway superintendent. This was the position that Garrett was in before he was promoted to highway superintendent. I have the job description from 2013 of water/highway superintendent. Tony at one point was in the position of water/highway superintendent before becoming water superintendent. But this is the job description that I have. And then I do have a wastewater superintendent position description.
Now, have you sat down with any of them and looked over those job descriptions with
When
them?
I spoke with Garrett, he told me he didn't have a job description.
Good Lord.
So that's concerning.
Okay.
I have not talked to Tony or to Kenny. Kenny, this might be the description. It was saved in Marlene's files as draft, but it's in the department files as a job description. And then, no, I've not. I should have asked Tony about that, but I certainly can.
Okay.
So, I mean, for the three of us to sit down, it would be a public meeting, which is totally fine, but I wonder if it would be faster, if we talked with them individually. I mean, I've talked briefly with Tony and briefly with Garrett, although Garrett stays in touch, pretty good about communicating things. So I don't know what you want to do. Do you want to do it as a board, or?
Doesn't matter to me if you want to take turns or if you want to do it as a board, or.
Maybe as a
mean-
board makes sense, because then we're all hearing the same thing at the same time.
Exactly.
And we're not also wasting their time because they're
Correct.
busy. We do it once.
Next
Could be like a
meeting.
working meeting kind of thing.
Even have I don't know if you want an afternoon meeting or
Yeah.
a regular,
Something like
at
that.
our regular meeting.
Okay.
you want, I'm happy to work with you to set something
Sure.
up, and
We can
I
do that.
can get in touch with the 3 superintendents, make sure we have the most recent versions of their job descriptions.
Right.
Do we want to give them an assignment first, read it through, mark it up?
Yeah. Yes, I
see
would,
what's
I would,
accurate, what's not accurate?
I would like them to review it and then come to us with what's already out of date in there, or what they think, you know, how they are willing to change that if there was no DPW director.
Great.
But I guess I would just end by saying, I think that these duties could be divided up. I think that they're all capable and hardworking. I'm just worried about that strategic piece. Not that I don't think they're capable of that. I think that it's a lot
We
on
need to
top
go
of
to somebody.
functioning and, you know, being working superintendents for their
There's a
department. I
strategic
mean, they're-
piece, and then there's another layer of management.
Yes,
It is difficult for a board to potentially be there as much as a director can. Not that you can't. It's- the
Right.
board could certainly do it.
Yeah, we would have to make sure all these things are covered that you like had listed out as the,
yeah, I can't wait to read these.
Yeah.
Is the vehicle or the mechanic one in here? I mean, I realize that's not like a superintendent, but I'm curious if there's a job description for that
I started
position.
with what I had for superintendents. I'm
Okay.
sure there must be a job description.
Yeah, I'd
so I
like to
can-
take a look at the mechanic position too, because I think that it's in play. It's in play with this decision.
Okay.
Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. I mean, maybe it's time to tweak some of the job descriptions too, to see, make sure they meet what's, or if we have to increase them, whether that means an increase in pay for certain positions or whatever.
Right? If there's an escalation of duties,
Right.
then it certainly needs to. Yep.
Just as an observation, all 3 positions are not salary. They're all entitled to overtime right now. That's
Right.
something to consider as well. If they end up with significant more duties that end up being more like management positions, that might be something to consider. I
Well,
wouldn't
and-
necessarily go that route, but it's something to consider.
Right, right. Or maybe it's a matter of freeing up their time by creating a different position in the DPW that, you know, if they're feeling like they want to assume those extra responsibilities, then maybe you create another
I need another laborer or a
Another
foreman position.
laborer or foreman so that,
Yep.
and that would be a savings to the town by doing it that way.
Correct.
With potentially getting more for the money you're spending.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I guess that's what I mean when I say everything's on the table, right? There's probably a number of different ways we could,
Or we're
Make
always
sure we're
looking for a
covering-
bigger bang for your buck.
absolutely,
I mean, that's the way it is.
absolutely.
That's great.
But you both have really good input on this, Ed, and I appreciated, you know, the thought you've put into this, so thank you.
I think we're following the right process. We're looking at everything, making sure that all the pieces fit, and are we shortfalls any place? And then whether it's justified for that position or not, and then if it's justified, what should it really be? What should that person be doing? And if it's not, then what should the other people be doing, right? I mean, basically.
And really, time is of the essence because it's budget season, and in fairness to the people that are stepping into this role, and, you know, we should,
But that money's in the budget
Find a
right now, and it's
solution.
not being spent. So
it is,
that's
that's
a good
true.
thing.
That's true, but,
yeah.
okay, are we good on that for now? I think,
I think we have an idea for next time.
okay.
We've arranged it, yeah.
Okay, topic 5 is the proposed use of GPS devices on town non-emergency vehicles, which would include the DPW. Would that include school vans?
Well, see, it says non-emergency, but I've been thinking about this. It's how we're going to use, if the board decides to get pricing and stuff, how would we use GPS? Because there's a lot of other possibilities. We could not only just know where our vehicles are, we could actually use that for a maintenance perspective of letting us know exactly when vehicles need an oil change, how much gas is being used, the mileage, whether it's time for a tire change. I mean, all these other things. So
GPS devices do that?
GPS companies do that. So the more I looked into this, I said, maybe all our vehicles should have a GPS.
I was going to say, why not on non-emergency?
and
I mean,
then-
why not on emergency as well?
We would need prices, right, basically of a company. I would say if we had a company that gives us a report like on a once a month or something, and also can set up for the town garage a report of when, oil changes are due, or they even report low tire pressure on some of these devices. I don't know what the prices are, so I think the next step is actually trying to get a couple companies to give us some information on what they provide and what the cost is before we move forward. But there's a lot that the GPS can do. And with the prior history, as far as things that have happened, I think this is a good way to go to bring a little bit more confidence to the town. And this is another way of managing our departments by GPS is another management tool, basically. And then I think the other thing we might have to do is determine where are our vehicles allowed. So I sometimes don't have a problem if a department needs supplies to go to like Big Y and pick up stuff. That seems, as long as it's the department heads, okay, I think that's not a problem. But if somebody's going to South Deerfield to have lunch with a town vehicle, then that might be a problem, right? So, I mean, if we move ahead with GPS, if we first get pricing, see what's available, then we can determine whether we want the whole fleet to have it or just non-emergency vehicles, you know what I'm saying? We also need a list of how many vehicles we have and what we have. I'm not even sure where that list is.
Yeah, I mean, we have a list for insurance purposes.
Yeah,
That's
good.
one of the easiest places to find that, and it lives there. But
I mean, if the GPS is monitoring things like you're saying, like oil changes and tires and everything, then it would seem like all vehicles should be on that, even emergency vehicles. And
Right.
And there should be accountability. If we're going to ask for accountability on some vehicles, there should be accountability on all vehicles.
Exactly.
In terms of, location. It's funny, I would say over the years, the most common call I get from residents is, why would I see this particular vehicle in Hadley at 9:30 in the morning or whatever? And I'm like, to go to businesses and pick things up. I mean, I don't always know why people were actually, but people see town vehicles out of town, and residents don't really like that. It's definitely something I've gotten calls about over the years, and from all different types. So, I mean, I guess it's worth looking into.
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
don't-
if my colleagues are in agreement, I think the next step is actually getting pricing and see what's available, and if it provides what I've been saying it provides, if it can provide a wide range of services, like letting us know if there's oil changes, mileage, gas, et cetera, et cetera.
Don't our gas pumps monitor who's getting gas?
that would
I think
believe that's the case,
it
yeah.
used to. I
Yeah,
mean, it used to.
It has to know which department that.
Yeah, it gets charged
being
to.
charged
So that is,
Okay.
it's usually monitored, I think it's by vehicle. So you have, when you fill up a certain vehicle, there's a way that it's monitored which vehicle is being,
They should have a card or
Yeah, they have a
a
little
code.
fob for that.
it's a fob,
Yeah,
right?
and then-
Yeah, and then there's that like
The operator
meter
has to-
route or whatever, and
yeah,
it
the
prints out a
operator has to type-
report.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's been there for a long time.
But I suppose we would have to look at what we're going to do with the information. What are we going to do with, if we have GPS? Are we going to be like staring at it every day and watching where all the trucks go and
Right.
cars? Or we're only going to pull it up if there's something in question, or if something gets stolen? How can we get at it so that the police can track it down?
And some of these companies also have, you can get a dash cam, so you can actually see where your vehicles are, and it
I don't want to
prevents.
be too intrusive,
No.
but
well,
but
Oh, yeah, but there's all
But
that.
but in all reality, most You know, I believe that most private companies that have fleets or at least a certain amount of vehicles, they're monitored by GPS. I think in the private sector, this is extremely common. I think it's
It is
probably
something common now in a lot of municipalities.
in
as well.
municipalities as well.
Especially larger ones that just have giant fleets that they're dealing with. The decisions that you can change based on the GPS data, that means a lot. You're checking to see if plowing routes are being done in certain ways. You're checking to see, some places make it available to the public too. They can see when their school bus is coming or other things like that, which is really interesting. But there's lots of opportunities. It's a question for us, and when we don't have a ton of assets, a ton of resources, would it change any of the decisions that we're making? Would it give us that much more value to have that information? Is there something you can do with the data? The answer might be yes. My hunch is that it wouldn't lead to, say, a cost savings for us. Some of these larger municipalities, you're saving money by doing it. I don't think we would, but I think it's worthwhile to look at it, and I think the management and other boosts that you might get from doing this could be very helpful.
I think it'll be
Public trust
very
is big.
helpful as far as the management side of it. And also if we're getting the information that it says online it can do, it's a tool for us. I mean, even Verizon has a fleet service. I mean, there's a couple of companies out there trying to find out what they have available who can give us the best deal for the best bang for our buck, as I mentioned, right?
Yeah.
It always comes back to that.
Right.
I can set up some demos. Would any of you be interested in joining me for those?
Yeah, depending on the time, yeah, let me know, and
I can let
probably
you all
like an
know
online
when I
thing.
set it up, and
Yeah.
I can do it.
If I can be there, I would like to at least see one of them,
Yeah.
you know,
That sounds great.
what it's capable of.
Yeah, I'm curious what they can do. And again, what are we going to do with this information?
That's a really good question.
Is it going to be worth, I don't know how many thousands of dollars it's going to cost us, but
I know.
is that going to help us?
Like
Could be
some of the
tens of
information you're
thousands,
talking about, like oil changes and tire, I mean, I would assume our mechanic is tracking that stuff when a vehicle needs an oil change, and that, people who are driving these vehicles are communicating to Donnie, hey, I've got a low tire, I've got,
Right.
something like that. So would there be, to your point, is there really a benefit in that? I mean, if,
Yeah.
you know,
For vehicle maintenance, like, I assume just getting gas, it gets the mileage into that, so that's how they can keep track of how many miles are on every car. And
I do know that
mileage.
accountability in terms of how vehicles are being used is top of mind for residents, and not just recently, but even before.
It's like,
something-
they tell me, Waxer keep honest people honest.
Mhm.
The GPS keeps our honest people honest too. I
fences,
mean,
yep, neighbors and
it's more
fences,
of a
Right.
keeping everybody in check and saying,
yeah.
okay, the town people just want accountability, and this is one
Yes.
way to do it. It's like paying for insurance.
Mhm.
You hope you don't have to use it, but
Right.
it's there in case you need it.
That could be another thing. Maybe it would help with our insurance because we have those things on there. I don't know.
I can check on that. That's interesting.
It's a theft deterrent.
Well, and
Anyways,
even
getting
there's
prices is-
information available if there's ever a motor vehicle accident too. You've got that GPS information available. I mean, luckily, we haven't had problems with our vehicles being in accidents, but something to, it's worthwhile.
Looking at costs
Yeah,
and
totally.
prices and seeing if it's
And the
worth it.
capabilities,
Right,
Mm-hmm.
and accountability, so.
I think I've seen even stickers on fleet vehicles that say that it's like a GPS monitored
Oh, yeah.
vehicle.
Lots of them have that, yeah.
So, okay, are we good with that? We're gonna look into that.
I think that's great. We've got next steps.
Topic 6 is a notice of intent fees collected to be transferred from general fund to conservation revolving fund. So we have a listing here of some funds that have been collected over the last handful of years, actually. So can you tell me what, these are just, they're fees required when they file a notice of intent?
That's correct. So there's fees that go, half of it goes to the state, half of it goes to the local conservation commission. And those fees are supposed to be used for conservation purposes. We do have a fund that's set up in order to spend on different conservation purposes. That can be staff, that can be advertisements, anything else that's in the basic running of the Conservation Commission. Due to some accounting issues, those funds were instead going to the general fund. So this is a very simple act. We just need to transfer those funds to our Wetlands Protection Fund instead. It's $1,917.50.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, but in the past, when we transferred funds, I thought we always had to do it with the Finance Committee.
Well, also,
in
these
order
are
to do it.
prior fiscal years. This doesn't require a town meeting vote?
So I expected it would. The town accountant said that this could be done by an act of the select board. So I can double check to see if that's true, but this was, the town accountant said that this is something that the select board can handle, which surprised me.
It does surprise me because it is previous fiscal years, so how can we do that? But, I mean, I don't have a problem with it. It's something it should have happened in 2019, but I just want to make sure that it is completely within our purview to make this decision and make this transfer.
I'm happy to double check with town council and with the accountant, and if it's something that the select board can't do, we'll take it to town meeting.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is good timing to figure out if that's what needs to happen, because we could throw an article on town warrant.
So we don't have to vote on this?
It would require a vote. And if you like, you can take the vote so that that's done, and if it turns out it's not in your authority, I can make sure that this goes
Okay.
to the
We can do it
town
that
meeting.
way.
But that's
Yeah,
up to you.
that'll clean it up quicker, yeah.
I'll make a motion that we transfer these fees as recommended by the town accountant in the total of $1,917.50. So those would be transferred from the general fund to the Conservation Commission Fund, with the stipulation that it will be checked to make sure that it is within our authority to do so.
Second?
Motion made and second. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Proposed traffic and parking improvements. No parking on Main Street at Billings Way and angled parking on Main Street outside Town Hall.
So no decisions are going to be made tonight. I don't want to just broach this initial conversation. This is something that the police chief was interested in talking about. This came from two separate incidents. One was just a day when we basically ran out of parking here at Town Hall, which is a good thing to see happen. It's in part just because of the amount of programming that we have and the number of visitors who come in. At the time, we did have those pods set up as well, which are now gone. But we don't have unlimited parking here. And there was an idea floated by the police chief that would both help slow down some of our traffic on Main Street in front of the building and create more parking, which would be to take those parallel parking spaces and turn into angled parking. So it could potentially create more spots that way. He believes it's something that could be done with the width of the road the way it is. So I wanted to at least broach that conversation here. There's certainly a lot more research that would have to be done to make sure that we can do it, but wanted to see if that was something that would be of interest here. The other issue, of course, that's also related to the issue of needing to keep that fire lane clear outside the building, which is one of the first places where people do park often. And we did have an incident last week where someone parked there and it needed to be ticketed, which we'll get to later in this conversation too, because that led to another issue. In Billings Way, that was flagged as well for, I think, entrance from emergency vehicles is necessary, but we've had issues with just because of the shape of that intersection. It could be helpful to put out signs saying where parking can be restricted to at that intersection there. So again, that's early going with that.
Billings Way comes right out onto Main Street,
Onto
that
Main
part
Street.
of Billings Way.
That's my understanding. So I would talk to the chief and bring a plan for you to look at, but just wanted to see if either of those are non-starters before we start looking more seriously at it.
I mean, I guess I'd want to see some type of mock-up of what the chief has in mind. I'm a little concerned about if you have the angled parking on Main Street, which you could certainly park a lot more cars. Now you have to back out onto Main Street to be able to leave the parking spot. So I'm obviously concerned about that. It's a place where a lot of people walk. You know, kids are getting out of the schools and walking both schools, kids who are walking home walk in that area. I don't know. I would have to see some plans.
Yep.
And,
agree with that.
and, you know, the intersection down by Billings Way has always been a little wonky. That's why we put that extra stop sign in. So there's a stop sign, as you're leaving the school, there's a stop sign before you actually get to where it forks. And then there's another stop sign. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd be interested in like some kind of mock-up of what he's thinking at both locations.
Great.
That's my,
Yeah, if, I know the new thing is back-in parking spaces. You're back in, so you're facing out when you get to go. When you do that
that's if
kind
you're
of
good at
angle thing.
backing up.
Yeah, well.
I'm
Well,
not
I don't
gonna,
know what's
I'm
better
not
or
gonna
what's
say
worse,
that
but
I'm
yeah.
not good at backing up, but I would not park in one of those spots.
And-
That's all I'm gonna say.
And I've, you know, doing the road jobs and stuff that I do when I'm out there, I watch the traffic a lot, and it's like, out by Billings Way, I've thought about it before, and I guess now's a good time. It's like, why don't we just move that pole that's in the middle of the intersection and make it just one lane coming out?
Yeah, just simplify it.
Yeah, just making an easier way. I don't know what it would cost or what it would take to get that pole so it's not in the middle of the driveway.
And I think
That seems simple.
you know, the parking lot out back is fairly big, but I think what limits the parking is the exiting of the fire
Yes.
trucks, right?
Yeah.
So we could really have a lot more spaces back there, but we really can't.
Yeah.
Because if they're, you know, if all the vehicles are coming out, they need ample room to be able to make those corners or backing back into the station.
Yeah.
You know, because it is a big space.
Yeah.
It's a big parking space, but much of it isn't used for
Can't be
parking.
used. Yep.
I just wonder if there's a different design for back there that would not, you know, impede on the apparatus coming and going, but I don't know.
It's a good question.
I mean, it's worth a look, because maybe we could fit 10 more spots back there somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
This is some
But, you know,
homework.
we'd obviously have to
More
do that
ideas, yeah.
in conjunction with, you know, with the fire department and the police department. Their vehicles are responding from back there too.
Yeah, and all the other ones that are, the Council on Aging van comes outside too. That's a lot
Right.
of spots that are
Right.
needed.
You know, maybe there isn't a way to add more, but maybe there is. Maybe a little redesign or
Yeah.
something back there would add some spots.
Oh, definitely look into that. Great. I just wanted to launch that as a discussion tonight.
I mean,
so
if you did
people
angled
should-
parking, you'd be able to add a lot of spots there.
That's interesting.
Don't you think? Out front, I mean?
Out front?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it would be
Outside of
so
town
many.
hall?
Oh,
Sure.
yeah, so many more spots.
Yeah.
Because you could probably angle in on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be across the street? Because it's very wide.
Yep.
The
definitely an
shoulders
option.
are very wide there.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not really marked now, so
It's not marked.
people are just parking
No.
wherever you want to.
You would be able to fit in a lot. You just have to be, as you were saying, concerned about the backing out of the space.
Yeah, I mean, don't forget, that's a residence across the street. And, you know, there's a lot I think we'd have to be mindful of, you know. We just were talking
I
about,
know, in the past, we've had this discussion, actually, quite a few years ago. We had a discussion here on parallel parking in the front, and there was some discussion of it would take away, it'd give us a Northampton look and take away from the historic look that the town has.
Sure,
So
yep.
There's that
that's-
too.
That was
There
a
is that.
concern.
yeah. That's a good point.
That is a good
And I was just mentioning, you know, we have such a big parking lot, but so few spaces because of the space we need for
Right.
the apparatus. But maybe there is a way to look at a little bit of a redesign of that where you could add some spots without, you know, creating any problem for the police, ambulance, or fire coming in and out of those buildings back there. So I think that's worth looking at too. Because a lot of times, people who are coming to the town hall are going in the back door because they're using the Council on Aging. You know, we know that visits to the Council on Aging are increasing, so the best parking for those people would be in the back of the building.
This was always set up for short-term parking, but sometimes people use it for long-term parking that causes the problems.
Right.
I agree with that.
Okay. So we'll look into that.
Great. Okay.
Proposed articles for town meeting. Here we go.
So we did have a deadline of February 6th to have articles come in. I did not really receive very much. It's possible that more will still come in. But what I've done is create just kind of categories of warrant articles so far. I can fly through these pretty quickly since this is just a quick overview for you. You might have already read this, so you might be in good shape. But so annual town elections is always number one. And then we have some general town articles. We'll need to do the normal authorization for grants, compensating balance agreements, Chapter 90, snow and ice, and vocational tuition and transportation. Then we have operating budget revolving fund. That's pretty typical as always as well, and we'll learn more over the next few weeks as we work with Finance Committee and others about anything that might need to be added there. I have some appropriations and some prior year bond authorizations that we'll actually be able to rescind. We didn't need to borrow for these asset management plans that were approved in last year. And we'll ask instead for one of them, just we need some kind of town contribution rather than bonding. I will recommend that we go with a free cash distribution. It's not a lot of money. It's $27,000. So we can decide if we want to go forward with that, but that would probably be the best way to proceed on this stormwater asset management project, which has a quite sizable grant attached to it from the state.
Right.
Opioid fund transfer, we have past years' money that was miscategorized and sent to general fund, which needs to go to opioid account. We have, we'll go over capital improvement planning projects when those are voted on.
We're working on that. We've had to cancel meetings and we've had weather issues and whatnot. So we've been a little more delayed than normal, but we are on track, I think.
Yep, I think that's right. Community preservation articles, which I'll actually give a preview of in my update a little later. There is some interest in just making sure that we're firm about what land is protected by Article 97, so parkland, conservation, parkland, not conservation land. So I'll work with town council to make sure we don't need any additional votes there, but they could come in community preservation. This next one would be a big one to talk about. So we are currently out of compliance with the EPA state and federal regulations on the general permit for stormwater discharges from small municipal separate storm sewer systems, colloquially called MS4. So the EPA has reached out to us about getting into compliance with those regulations. And the first thing that they would like us to do, like being a gentle way to describe what they're looking for, is to pass a post-construction and construction stormwater management bylaw. This is now a requirement of every municipality to have this kind of bylaw describing who sets the regulations and what those regulations are for making sure that construction is done in compliance with the state stormwater standards. So there are some sample bylaws out there that are pretty easy to work with. Even if we just pass the bylaw and then say regulations are coming, that will look favorably to the state and to the feds. I'm working with the planning board, with building inspector and town council and our engineering consultants to put together a draft bylaw. But if we think we can get it done in this cycle, it would probably be a good idea to try to do so. EPA is asking for a timeline of when we believe we can have this completed. I think it's reasonable to think we can do it by the end of the year. If not at this town meeting, it could even rise to the level of having a special town meeting just because of how important the state and feds are taking this compliance. So that's out there. I have flag and sign bylaw. I know that there was some conversation that was happening on this before. Marlene had a draft. I haven't picked it up yet, but this is another thing that most municipalities are dealing with right now, is making sure that their bylaws are pretty airtight on this because of different First Amendment challenges that have come up. So we want to make sure that we can do
Didn't
this.
we
with them.
have a town property sign bylaw that just went down in flames at town meeting?
We had a town meeting, and there was a lot of discussion
was.
on putting,
And-
it was, I still remember the words from Larry Grossman at town meeting. He got up and he was all upset about it because Lydia had brought it up.
Lydia had brought it forward.
And, yeah, there was like,
Because
we,
there's, right now, there's nothing stopping anyone, like someone who's campaigning for a position in town to put your campaign sign in front of town hall,
In front of town hall? In front of, on town property?
on town property.
Huh.
I mean, this is a polling location, but, when polls are open, there's laws, but
Yeah, I mean, the town is in charge of the town property, so we would just remove it. We would have to.
But there was a bunch of discussion about it, because they were saying there was no,
right, they were trying,
we
they were
have
saying
no-
it was being denied, and
Yeah.
they shouldn't be denied, and
Yeah,
couldn't put it on town property because we were sort of silent on it, right? So,
Yeah, it's been going on for a long time.
yeah, so,
there's good sample bylaws on this that would probably be wise for us
Yeah.
to pass because of, there are some groups out there that try to test just the limits on,
Yes.
on town speech, city speech, and are often just trying to see what they can get away with. So it could be a good thing to make sure we have, it could just be policies, it might not need to rise to the level of bylaw, but it would probably be a good idea for us to have something in
Okay.
writing.
I'm sure there's plenty of communities that have them, we could review what they have.
And it's a good conversation to have. I mean, it'd probably be the kind of thing where we need to do like a town forum on first before you don't want to just bring it to town meeting. So we'll
this will
make
be
sure
another lively discussion if I recall the
It
last
was,
one.
it was lively,
that sounds great.
lively,
Sign me up.
yeah. Yeah.
It's a fascinating issue.
it is.
I had a conversation with the assessors briefly about our 41C property exemption for seniors. It's a standard $500 exemption by state law. If you choose to opt into it, you also have the ability to raise it as high as $1,000 on this exemption. We're at $650 right now, which is generous, and I didn't realize how generous until I looked into what other communities around us had. We're by far the highest of comparable communities around us. But if there's an interest in trying to help some of our seniors on their property taxes, there is an option to raise it higher. So just wanted to put that out there.
So this is a request by the assessors.
The assessors were talking about it as maybe something that they'd want to do. I believe after the research I did, that they're probably comfortable where they are at right now with 650. But when I was putting this list together of potential items for town meeting, just wanted to flag that as well.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
when they
but
say
that,
seniors, what age would they be referring to?
I believe it's above 67, but that's, there's a state law, and then you have the local ability to raise, to lower it, I think, to 65, but I think we're still at 67.
Okay.
but that may not, that would come through the assessors, and they may not push it forward.
I think, trying to think if it would have to start with the assessors. I think it just has to go through town meeting. I don't know if it would have to have the backing of the assessors, but it's the kind of thing where you would like it to, I would think. So the next two are items that, in our 2018 financial policies, there were 3 things that were flagged that didn't currently exist in our bylaws that would kind of be best financial practices. One of those things we did adopt, and that was creating an OPEB trust fund. We have not yet adopted Chapter 203C. This is the Massachusetts Prudent Investor Act. It's a pretty straightforward piece of legislation that we would just adopt locally, which has just some rules for making sure that money is being invested properly through a fiduciary, which is probably just a good thing to adopt anyway. That allows us to use the trust a little more differently. And then the other item that we haven't done is to actually appoint a trustee for this OPEB liability trust fund. And options include setting up a whole board of trustees with all sorts of rules about who can be a trustee, or appointing the town treasurer as a trustee, which I think would be a much simpler way to do it for a community of our size. So those are 2 things that I would recommend doing, but it's for this board to talk about, and I can of course, provide more information as you need it, but it's from our 2018 financial policies that were done, in collaboration with the state, and I think it's just things that are still kind of sitting out there that we haven't done yet, which should be wise. And then this was already teased earlier, but we will need to update our ADU, accessory dwelling unit regulations, to be in compliance with the state's Affordable Homes Act, which was passed in 2024. Planning Board's done a really good job with this already, and they did have a public forum last week and passed a version of these updated regulations that would be a zoning bylaw for consideration at town meeting. So that's something that should be ready to go for this town meeting.
Okay.
And that's what I have so far. A couple other housekeeping things that will come up. But if there's any other bylaws or any things that have been on your minds, now's a good time to bring it up as well. And it's very possible to hear from other folks now that the deadline's passed. But just want to give you a preview of what I'm seeing so far.
Plus all the financial stuff.
Yes, yes, all the financial
Yeah.
stuff, which
Okay.
I teased very quickly here in the beginning.
Yes.
Shortest right up here and the longest
Right,
thing
right.
for the actual town meeting.
Sometimes not long at all. You never know. Okay, great. Well, I feel like we're being, really proactive about getting ready for town meeting because it comes up pretty quick
It'll be here before you know it.
before you know it. Okay, so topic 9 is potential donation of land to the town on Main Street, south of Depot Road. So
That's
I'm looking at this. This is swamp, right? This is,
It's very swampy.
yeah.
There is not, this is not a buildable lot. This is, if you look at the wetlands maps,
Yep.
it's almost all wetlands. It is,
Right.
this is
Gets
wetland.
underwater,
Yeah.
goes underwater every year.
Yeah, so this is really a perfect candidate for something to be taken for conservation. And so the owner of it called me up a little while ago and said she'd be interested in donating this land. It's 2 acres, not buildable, all wetlands, right on Main Street. There's 2 paths for accepting donations of land. One would be to go through town meeting, and the other would be, if we say it's just going to be kept for conservation, it could be voted on by the Select Board and the Conservation Committee. So I wanted to just bring it to your attention tonight to see if it would potentially interest you in moving forward with conservation. I will be meeting with the Conservation Committee later this week to tell them about it as well. Because of the kind of parcel it is, it does make a lot of sense, I think, to be in conservation. Right now, the town takes in about $232 annually in taxes on this land. So we'd be giving that up, but I think our budget can most likely absorb that.
So, okay, I'm curious, I would also be curious, just because of where it is, and there's a lot of, the potential for flooding in that area, if there's a reason we wouldn't want to own it, that's all.
Interesting.
Any kind of culvert problem or anything like that.
Other than have to take responsibility for it.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I think
I assume there's a culvert there, isn't there?
it's right near the it's not terribly far from the Cowbridge culvert, but it's up the road. But
And that road floods over.
Yeah.
I mean, it would
for
give us
sure.
more access to address anything and to make any, if there's any
I guess I'd
mitigation
just
we
be-
could do on that land. That we
I want to know a little bit more about any potential reason we wouldn't want that land.
Yep, that definitely makes sense.
It doesn't hurt to have conservation look at it
They
either,
certainly should, right.
see what they say.
Oh, and this is the property card on that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
property card included. Yep, so we'll see what conservation says. I can continue to look at any potential risks to the town by taking it on. Certainly something we should be looking at. My guess is the risks
Certainly is
wouldn't-
not buildable. I mean,
No.
that's not.
My guess is the risks don't really change either way. If something happens on that land, I don't know if the owner would really be doing anything with it. I mean, I think the town, the land was important to the owner for sentimental reasons, according to the late owner's wife. So, yeah, that's what we got.
kind of be curious to know what Daryl thinks about that, because it looks like his property probably butts right up against it.
Oh, yeah.
It does.
We had asked some of the abutters if there was any interest in them purchasing the land, just to keep the town out of it. There was not any interest.
Yeah, I don't
There-
think
there
it's
wasn't
really
really anything they
usable,
could do
anything.
with it.
Yeah, you can't really grow anything. If it's where I'm thinking, it's
Yeah.
really
You can't do
wet.
anything, you're just paying taxes.
I mean, it's in
on
the
it.
middle of wonderful farmland, but it's just
not that stretch.
particularly, yeah, right.
Though
Okay.
it's all wetlands in the maps. So.
Okay. Okay, appointments, discussion on parking clerk vacancy. We have a parking
We
clerk?
have a parking clerk. We have a position for a parking clerk, and it's currently vacant. We did accept what is Chapter 90, Section 20A, the state statute, which governs the non-police side of parking. So it's a pretty long statute here about the roles of the parking clerk. It's mostly in the actual administration of once a ticket is written, making sure that it's paid, or meeting with someone if there's an appeal for that ticket. Typically, we've had either the town clerk or the town treasurer take on that position. I think that it is an appointment of the select board, so we don't currently have a parking clerk. It's vacant. My suggestion would be to add it to the responsibilities of the treasurer. You happen to have negotiations coming up for our town treasurer anyway. I think adding that to the job description would be a wise idea. That way, as you appoint the treasurer, you're also appointing a parking clerk, so you don't have to worry about making that appointment on a 3-year basis.
I mean, how often do we have parking?
So I've been here 2 months, and it came up last week. So once every 2
I
months,
mean,
maybe. I think maybe 6 a year.
I've been
6
here
tickets get written a year.
40-something years. Yeah, I've never, I mean, do we even issue parking tickets?
We do. We issued one last week because of the parking in the fire lane. And the police chief will sometimes issue them, say if someone's violating the winter snow parking
Right.
ban.
Or if, I mean, I guess in a handicap spot or something like that.
And that would be, I suppose the parking clerk also has to govern that there's state statutes on the handicap parking.
But
That's
the
easier to
parking
enforce.
clerk just, so the police department
Writes the
issues
tickets.
the citations.
Yep.
And then the parking clerk,
Handles the paying and the administrative.
I didn't know you could get a parking ticket from Hatfield.
You can.
I'm a
and
very
challenge accepted, right?
law-abiding parker, clearly, because I've never gotten one, but, okay, interesting.
What's next? Traffic lights?
Whoa.
That's crazy talk, Ed. That is crazy talk.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh.
Okay,
So
do we,
you don't have to do anything tonight. I'm kind of suggesting that maybe we go a little longer without a parking clerk, and then we just, as you're negotiating on the treasurer's contract, work on the job description and add parking clerk to it. That might be one thing to do. And the other thing you can do is just appoint a parking clerk. You can pick anybody you want. So
Karen?
that's an option.
Sounds like a plan to me.
Uh-oh.
So we haven't had one all this time?
We have. We haven't had one since the maybe 2 or 3 treasurers ago resigned. So I think maybe
Not a real busy job.
it's still them. I guess it would be a vacancy if they're no longer a town employee.
Oh.
Although I don't know if there's a requirement to have it be a town employee.
I've never heard of anyone getting a parking ticket in
No,
town.
me
I'm
neither.
sure it
Me
happens.
neither, yeah, I'm sure it does, but I didn't realize that you needed to have a parking clerk.
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
We accepted Chapter 90, 20A, so that creates the position.
Okey doke.
And it is a useful thing to have in the rare instances in which they are given out.
Well, if we get all those swaggy new parking spots out
Oh,
front,
yeah.
There you go.
Oh, there we go.
could
Add some
become a big
meters.
role. Could become a big role. Actually, when you think about it, when we have the concerts, people do kind of park all over the place. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah,
you could
they do.
have,
And I'm sure that fire lane gets blocked.
yeah.
Mm,
I don't know. I think
they-
they're.
they
great.
I
They stay
think
on
I
top
was
of it.
going to say, I
Good.
bet Bob stays pretty much
They
on top
stay
of
on
that.
top of it. I've seen the police out there making announcements saying, you move it or we'll move it.
Good.
Okay, town administrator report.
So I'll plan to fly through this as quick as I can because, I don't know, meeting already feels long enough. Got me caring
I would
plenty to write
agree.
about.
I would
So,
agree with that.
quick project update. So, on the culvert, EJ Prescott has completed the culvert work. I don't know if any of you have driven out past there, but looking pretty good. We're finalizing payments with them now. We're well within our appropriation, but because of the amount of time that they had to be out here is a much longer job than they were expecting because of the weather. The amount of water that came through meant they had to rent different equipment. So they are above their initial scope, but still well within our project budget that was allocated at town meeting. So we're working out with them what that means for change orders and everything else. But
Okay.
we're not going to need more money from the town. In fact, we should come in under budget, even though
Okay.
there was some work that was done. So we will figure that out.
Favorite words,
negotiating
under
all that.
budget.
We'll
We
see.
don't hear them often.
We will see. COA floor project was completed Friday, January 31st. The building was cleaned last week. We have a little more touching up for cleaning that I think was being done after, but project considered complete. Overall, I think folks are very happy with how the floors look downstairs, and the folks here in this building were really excellent in how they were able to still meet town needs while also not being able to be in this building the whole time. So I
Yeah.
think we've learned some things about how to write the scopes for this and how to clarify early on, just are we going to be able to work in the building, and if we want to be able to, then we might need to add that into a contract and see if anyone can provide that to us too. But overall, I think the work was done well, and we should end up with a good product. So
That's great. Well, thanks to the people at Town Hall who were disrupted, and certainly the COA who somehow managed to keep functioning amid all
did.
the chaos. But they're all moved back down.
move back down. Yeah,
That's great.
Looking really good.
I can't wait to see it on Friday.
Excellent. Wastewater treatment plant is continuing along well. Most of the major progress right now is in the headworks building. Walls and slabs are 100% complete. So they're on track to finish January 2026, going along nicely.
Wow, that's a lengthy project.
It's a long project. It's a big one. So next item, I just wanted to talk about this quickly to see if there's interest in trying to pursue this. So I do get occasional messages from residents, I'm sure you all do, about snow and ice maintenance. It could be on either way. It could be why wasn't this done differently, or it could be why was so much work, why did you clear the roads and sidewalks so many times when it wasn't a lot of snow, or it was about to be 35 degrees the next day, or whatever else. And some of it's just everyone's going to have their own thoughts about how things should be done, but some of it could be maybe not having policies in place and a set of operations for just how we approach a storm and in what way and what we expect out of it. And there is a line that we want to try to walk of keeping our roads as safe as possible, but also staying within a budget that we agree on. So it's something that I've talked to the highway superintendent about, just making sure that we update our procedures there. And there's some interest in doing that and just having something that's approved of by this select board, so that if people do have questions, we say, well, this is our operations plan, this is what we do. If you have questions, be in touch. Is that something that might be of interest to this board?
That might be helpful.
I mean, I guess so. Every storm is different.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
you can't really have
predict
like
everything.
a standard.
Nope, you can't.
I know there's some, if there's only so many inches, then they plow. If there's not, then they do this, and they do, there are processes and that different areas have.
Yeah, I mean,
for different amounts of snow or ice or whatever.
yeah, I mean, I think to do it from an operational standpoint makes sense, but there's no way you're going to create a policy that's going to, make everyone happy with how things were done, weren't done, I mean, I don't get complaints very often about the roads. I think people are generally happy. I'm usually pleased with what I see, and I leave very early in the morning for work, and I think they do a really good job.
Good.
I think they do. I do. I think they do a good job. And some storms are trickier than others, and predictions change, and it's sort of like, every time there's a snow day, and this is not unique to Hatfield, there's half the people it shouldn't have been, half the people it should have been, it's a tough call on handling storms, and then also decisions that are a result of, so,
I think it'd have to be broad. It would have to be a broad thing.
yeah, I mean, there has to be a lot of, discretion in there based on all kinds of things, timing, type of precipitation.
I mean,
all
sometimes
different
it's a
things.
judgment call based on the weather reports, and if the
We
weather
run pretty
report's
lean
off,
staffing-wise, too.
Absolutely.
you know,
Yep.
Yeah,
the weather service says 1 inch and you get 10, it's like, what happened?
right. Or they make you think you're
opposite.
going to get, so you pre-tree, you do all this other stuff, and then nothing comes. So it's,
Or they're closing the schools and there's no snow the next day.
right.
They're doing it based on what the weather report is, so.
I wouldn't want to be in the position of having to make that call.
Ever since John Quill retired, I don't know about these weather
With his
reports.
magic marker. It's true. It's true. You're right. You're totally right. He was a legend. He was a legend, yep. Okay.
Next item, so One Stop for Community Growth Grants. I'll be meeting with Ann Goby and staff on February 27th just to learn a little more about the specific Rural Development Fund grants that are a portion of the One Stop. If there's any interest from folks joining in that meeting, I can send you details.
What time of, yeah, could you send me the details?
It's going to be 11 a.m., I think, but I bet I could change that if there's interest. We're far enough out that they could probably make time for it.
Yeah, I'd like to be there, but I'm not sure I can be that day. But you could send me the information.
Sure.
Ann is wonderful, fabulous, yeah.
I really appreciated them reaching out. So what they did was they reached out to any of the towns that counted as rural, according to the state, that hadn't yet received grants through this Rural Development Fund. So we're one of them, so that's nice to see that they're looking out for us and probably would look favorably upon us receiving some assistance there. So this is, we've gotten plenty of assistance through the wider program because it includes MassWorks, the One Stop. But the Rural Development Fund also includes some site readiness grants, community planning grants, a few other things that might be of interest to us. So.
Just backtracking a little bit, I'm sorry, but like the snow and ice policy and the procedure, that sort of folds into our initial conversation about the DPW director. And that, because that is something, that's kind of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about that.
It's in the
sort
job
of
description. Is
holistic-
responsible for policies and procedures of
Right.
the department.
Right,
It's right there.
right,
Yep.
yeah.
And do we lose that in some way by not having it? Maybe you do. Maybe the policy procedures get written by each of the individual superintendents for their departments. That could work well too. So
Seems to me like that should have already been done.
we have we have policies and procedures for DPW.
Okay.
It's all written out.
All right.
It has not been updated since I believe 2010. So it's probably the kind of thing that's good to do at least every
All
5
right.
to
So
10
it's already
years.
there. We just got to, okay.
Yeah, probably a good thing to update. Snow may not be a section in there. I'm coming from a town where every year it was required to put out a snow and ice plan that people could see. It was publicly available. I think that was overkill too, an annual plan because it didn't really change that much each year.
And
But
how do you plan? You can't, how do you
plan.
know?
you plan. You tell folks this is where the blue lights are for the parking ban, which we don't need to worry about here.
Right.
This is where these are the routes that we do first. Here are the routes here are the sidewalks that residents are responsible for, and just putting that out there to the city council each year gave it some kind of awareness to folks about what things looked like. Did it make a big difference with the calls we received? I don't know, but we had a plan. So, anyway.
I did see on the news, speaking of that, I did see on the news there was another community, I think, that did a reminder to people to shovel out their hydrants. And, that might be, we've had quite a bit of snow. We've got some more snow expected. It might be good to even, I'm sure Bob would be willing to put something up on the fire, social media
Great idea.
pages, reminding people about that. Because that is important.
Great. Okay. So that's one-stop grants. Diamondback Storage, just wanted to let you know that this is something that I'll report on in future meetings as well, just to keep you updated. So right now, the town does pay for a storage unit where we have artifacts that are kept. It's $1,300 a month. We have been working with the Historic Commission to figure out what's being moved here, the second floor, and what needs to be moved elsewhere. They have been looking at other options, but that hasn't happened yet. So we are still paying for that, and it's something that I'm happy to try to accelerate the efforts there on figuring out what our plan is for some of these.
I thought
artifacts.
the plan was to let them be upstairs so that we could get rid of that storage unit.
Exactly.
That is the plan, but there are some things that probably aren't going to fit there, or not be at the level they want. That's what I'm told. No, John, am I wrong?
Well, we were told that that was enough room for everything that they needed. They were going to move out, so.
Yeah. So
they
we'll
got to
find
move out. So
Great.
they got to get out of there.
Yeah,
That's why we have the upstairs.
and yet we're wanting to expand the collection. It's a
I mean, they're the ones that came in and said, look at you spending all this money for that storage. If we have it upstairs, we can save the town all this money, but they're not
Yeah.
moving on it at all.
I'll pick up our efforts to make sure that we get this moved forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure Diamondback would like some closure on that too.
Or just our money.
Yeah.
And then Community Preservation Committee applications. So just want to give you a quick update on those, if that's helpful. So there were a number of applications that came in. There are 7 now that they are probably going to recommend funding for, and that will, of course, go to town meeting. 3 of them are about the Main Street Cemetery. One is for cemetery road improvements. One is to create just kind of a walkway that will really double as a park in honor of Oliver Smith, which looks like an interesting plan, and then also some restoring of the lawn and cemetery space at that Main Street cemetery, just kind of the open lawn space there. You'll hear more about all 3 of those. There was an application for fixing the roof at the Farm Museum, and they're interested in doing that. There's road improvements as well at the Brad Street Cemetery. There's an application put in for irrigation at Smith Academy Park, which will help a lot with maintenance, and they seem interested in that. And then there's a supplemental application for the project at the Day Pond, which they're interested in funding as well. So that's where things currently look like they're at. They're meeting upstairs as we speak, but I've been working closely with the chair to just kind of make sure they have any information they need from us.
Wasn't there phases of the Smith Academy, like walking path? Did that drop
Yeah,
off?
great question. So because not all the money that we have has been spent yet, they're interested in seeing that is completed first before giving more funds for it, and would like us to apply in a future year if there's an additional phase we'd like to do. And it could end up working out well to wait on that, since there'll be Day Pond construction happening
Right.
there anyway, so it might be a good idea to wait. But if
That
we-
was a Phil project, so somebody's monitoring that.
Yeah, between me and Garrett, we've been working with CPC on that, and Garrett feels like it can go either way. Give us
Okay.
more money, we'll build more paths now, and if you want to wait, then we'll come back.
Okay,
So that's my report.
excellent.
Last item from
yeah.
me, there is an additional item that was added to your agenda under unanticipated new business. We found out on Friday that the Cannabis Control Commission found an error in our host community agreement with River Valley, and has asked that we fix this error. Attorney Tom Mullen has drafted up an amendment to our agreement, which would fix the date that was incorrect before. This is the date of when they received their license. We've amended that mistake and would just need a signature on that. I think it's appropriate to make sure this board approves of doing it that way, and then we can have Diana sign.
The change is a date.
The change was a date, the date of when they received their license. We had put July and it was June or something like that. We were off by a month.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah, whatever it
Take a
takes to get that done.
I need a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the amendment to the River Valley Growers Host Community Agreement.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And this is just for me to sign?
Yes, that'll be sufficient.
Okay, very good. Our next meeting is February
28th.
28th,
Yes.
Yes.
25th.
25th.
28th is a lie. 25th.
25th. Right.
That will be a joint meeting with the select board. We'll go over the DPW budgets and treasurer's budget as well.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
actually, can I ask you about that? The treasurer's budget, the treasurer will be meeting with the finance committee. Most of the items in their budget are things that are kind of more on the finance side. Would you like to still have them come to this meeting too, to discuss their budget, or would you be comfortable with them just meeting with the finance committee? The treasurer.
Okay, wait a sec. Who's,
The
are
treasurer
you
will be.
asking,
Yes, I'm asking.
should the
you.
treasurer come before us?
Yes.
I mean, I think that the benefit of doing that is townspeople get to hear about what's in the budget.
Perfect. Yep,
That's
that sounds
true.
good to me.
So, yes, I think that would be a good,
Good. I'll have them come.
yeah,
That's perfect.
great. Okay,
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second your emotion.
motion made and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you, Karen. Thank you.